This is Cammies Canines podcast.
Hey everybody, thank you so much for joining us. This is our very first episode of the Cammies Canines podcast. And the intent or the purpose behind this podcast is to give our audience an opportunity to learn a little bit more about the veterans on the property and their journey. So today we have Bryan. A lot of you may have seen Bryan on the many different news opportunities that we've had. And so welcome, Bryan.
Hey, well, thanks for having me, Nate.
Very excited to be doing this podcast. We've been working on this for quite a while. I mean, this has been a long time in the making, so I'm excited to finally get it started. So what we really want to do today is we want to hear about your story, your journey. Can't talk today. Things that you've been through and what has led you up to this point, and some of your future goals and your aspirations.
Well, is there enough time for this podcast today?
There is. Well, so these episodes are going to be anywhere between 1 to 3 hours, so I don't want to give you any sort of restraints. I want you to be able to tell your story.
All right. Well, then I think in 3 hours I can give everybody just a little taste of it. My journey, it begins me enlisting in the Army. That's how I'm able to be out here at the Cammies Canines Sanctuary, be a part of the Cammies Canines tribe, and to do what I do out here. I enlisted on my birthday, February 8th, in 1989.
You enlisted on your birthday?
On my birthday. That was my birthday gift. I worked that out with my mom when I was 12. I was turning 17.
Oh, okay. So they had to sign the waivers for you.
They had to sign the waivers. I did everything I could to graduate high school early, which I did. I graduated at that semester point midway through my junior year, and waited for a month and a half or so until that's, for my birthday to come around and have my mom sign that paperwork.
And so you were in do they call it the delayed entry program for the Army as well?
Yes, it is the DEP program, yes.
Okay, and for those of you that are not familiar with the military, or at least how it works, when you first sign up and enlist in the military, whether it's the Marine Corps or Army, you're in what's called the delayed entry program. So you'll still go down to the recruiting office, you'll work with the recruiter, you'll prepare for boot camp, so the likelihood of you succeeding is much greater than had you not been in the delayed entry program. And you could be in the delayed entry program for as long as a year, right?
I believe 12 months.
And so how long were you in the delayed entry program?
Oh, about 10 days.
10 days.
Maybe 14 days.
Okay.
Yeah, I was in basic training 2 weeks after I enlisted, or after I signed my paperwork.
That is pretty young.
Yeah.
So you were 17 in boot camp.
I was 17 in boot camp. and believe it or not, there was a guy who was about 5 days younger than me. So he did the exact same thing I did. He had worked it out when he was early in age with his parents to sign the enlistment paperwork. He had the same dream as me at 17, being service country. But this is about me, not about him.
Yeah. And so why did you choose the Army over the Marine Corps?
Well, I knew at a young age I was gonna serve my country, and I was in ROTC in high school, and I'm glad you asked this question, because it's kind of it's significant in my life. And so what I did is I gave every branch of service that was at the recruiting center at the Solano County Mall in Fairfield, California, every opportunity to show me what they had. So I walked into the Marine Corps recruiter's office because it was the first one on the left. Everything in the military starts off on your left. So I walked into the Marine recruiter's office and told them that I wanted to know more about the Corps and what they had to offer, and that I would love to volunteer in their office and do work for them, whether it be sweeping, mopping, whatever it was, cleaning their bathroom. I volunteered. And I gave them 2 weeks. That was in my mind. I was going to give each one 2 weeks and then determine off of that which branch I would sign my paperwork in. In the Marine Corps office, they had me sweeping and mopping. Exactly what I said I would do, they had me do. But there was never, ever any opportunity with them to do anything else.
Well, did you guys at that point talk about what MOS you were interested in? So
yes.
MOS is Military Occupation Specialty. Again, we have to do our best to try to break down the acronyms if we are using them for those
Sure.
that are not familiar with military acronyms. So that's basically your job. And one of the first things that we speak about when we're talking to a recruiter is what job we are interested in. So is that something that they spoke with you about, or
Yes.
you weren't even talking about MOS yet?
No, we were talking about MOS. And for me at the Marine Corps office, it was the 0300 series. You know,
Best of them was in the Marine Corps.
yeah, I wanted to be that motherfucker, you know, with that M60 machine gun in my hand, or an M16 with an M203, or firing a law rocket,
Or M240 Golf medium machine gun.
oh, well, that was you in your era.
That's
In
right.
my era, it was the M60.
M60 is the Rambo gun. For those of you that have seen Rambo.
That's the baddest motherfucker on the planet right there. Yeah, it was discussed, 0300 series. So I gave him 2 weeks, and I was sweeping and mopping, which is like I said, exactly what I told him I would do, and that's what I was doing. At the end of the 2 weeks, I walked over to the Air Force office and knocked on the door because it was locked. Nobody responded, so I skipped that. I walked over to and it's only 2 feet away from each other. Each door is like, you know, the Marine Corps office is immediately on the left, facing to my right, and the Air Force office was the next office, and it was on my left, kind of in the corner, but facing towards me, the door. So it was locked. And Sergeant Slaughter was the gentleman's name. Believe it or not, in the Air Force, Sergeant Slaughter. Would you believe that?
So they were perhaps on break?
You know what? Come to find out, that motherfucker was never in there. He was always at a high school. He was extremely busy. Fairfield is an Air Force town. So then I stepped over, and I'm looking at the Navy's office, and I'm at the door, and I'm just looking and looking and looking. I said, nope, I'm not going to do this one. Sharks can fucking eat me. I said that. That's what went through my mind. So I walked into the Army's office, and they were Sergeant Marshall, female, great lady, extremely informative, very, very helpful in my journey. And mind you, I'm 13 years old doing this.
So 13. You want to know for quite a while that you wanted to join.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I know people like that, but to be going down to the recruiting office at 13, I mean, I was in the delayed entry program for a year, and I didn't see a 13-year-old coming down asking questions about what he could do for the military.
Yeah. No, I was 13 when I was doing this. And, you know, and that story even stretches back to the day I saw John Wayne in the movie Green Berets. And then...
Wait, what year was this?
13. I was this is 1985.
Oh, okay.
And I can remember every day walking to school, seeing the flag fly at my elementary school, and just thinking of what an honor it would be for me to serve my country. Every day I saw that flag. And then when I would get to middle school, and I would walk by my elementary school every day, and I would walk up into to my middle school, and I would see that flag fly. You know, and just think that, you know, everywhere I went was connected with a flag, you know, when I was a kid. And there was nothing more important in my mind than serving my country. My grandfathers did it. My father did it. My stepfather did it. My uncles. You know.
All Army?
Air Force, Army. My grandfather, my stepdad's father, my grandpa Sable, started off in the Army marching through North Africa. And I remember him telling me stories, not very many of them, but telling me stories about how he carried a bazooka that just bounced off the Panzer tanks. Never, ever, he said they never worked. But he carried it all the way through North Africa and into Italy, and then onward. But he ended up retiring out of the Air Force.
20, 30 years?
I remember reading one of my dad's, and I don't like using that word stepdad, but for conversation's sake, I'm gonna differentiate between the two because they're extremely significant different stories, or influences on my life. My stepdad's dad, my grandpa Sable, he was stationed in the Philippines back in the 60s, and I remember reading one of my dad's Little League programs, and in it had all the coaches' names, all the team members. And I get to my dad's team, my stepdad's team, and I ask him, I said, "Hey, Dad, how come Grandpa's rank isn't on here?" He said, "Oh, that's when he got seconded out to the CIA, kid." You know, and I thought, wow, cool. My grandpa was in the CIA. Come to find out, he worked in the CIA for a little while. The Air Force seconded him out to the CIA. He worked in the Science and Technology Division. And he set up all the secure communications between Vietnam and the United States, from Vietnam to the Philippines to Hawaii and then mainland. So that was for me as a kid, that was really super fucking cool.
Were you ever able to talk to him directly about it?
A little bit. He passed away in 1988, September of 88. And my grandmother didn't like him talking about it very much. So she always steered conversations away from it. But whenever I can get him alone outside, I would always pop a question in here and there, and he would give me a cursory answer, not very many details, and the CIA bit, I was never able to ask him about that.
Well, it
I
could have
thought it
been
was
due to top secret clearance or certain things like that, where maybe he was not in a position to disclose any of that information.
that's very possible, and that I would never could understand until I was actually in the military, in the Army, and and realized that operational security was more important than actually knowing your fucking job. If you open your fucking mouth, everybody's done. So
Potentially, yes.
yeah, potentially. So back to the recruiter's office. I saw the Army door, and I walked in. I saw Sergeant Marshall. She introduced herself to me, and I introduced myself. Told her how old I was, what I wanted to do, and I'm here to volunteer in your office and do whatever was necessary. Mop, sweep, answer the phones, file paperwork, whatever it was. And immediately they took right into me, and I started off sweeping and mopping, cleaning the bathroom. The station commander, Sergeant Obafo, he called me into his office every day and just thanked me for what I did.
So you were involved with the Army, at least the recruiting office, since you were 13.
13.
And you didn't sign the papers until you were 17.
Yes.
On the day of your birthday.
So I was in the Army for 4 years before I was in the Army. I remember at 15, just about 15, I had been answering phones already for 2 years and taking messages down. But at 15, they finally gave me a phone list and said, "Here, Firth, start making phone calls. These are all the people you go to high school with, or people you went to junior high school with. So potentially, all of these people on this paperwork, and see if you can't make some appointments for us." I remember feeling so proud that day. I have a phone call list of about 450 names, and I was able to make about almost 60 calls that day.
Did they offer meritorious promotion in the Army when you go into boot camp if you are able to have a few of your friends or a few people enlist?
Yes.
Okay. So that's the same in the Marine Corps. So if you get 2 people to sign up in the Marine Corps, when you go to boot camp, you will graduate in E2 instead of an E1.
Correct.
Okay. So I'm assuming.
Actually, I went to basic as an E2, got out as an E3 from basic training.
Were you one of the honor graduates, or
I was an honor graduate as well. Yes, I got my dress blues.
So you carried the guide on?
I never did have to carry a guide on. I was never a squad leader or an acting squad leader, never acting platoon leader, never.
You were the most improved recruit, right?
Probably.
I'm just kidding.
I could run my ass off. But literally, I remember getting to basic. I could barely do 40 push-ups. That
was actually a joke that I used to tell people. I said, if you're joining and you want to get promoted and you were unable to get 2 people to join up before you go there, I said, just act like complete garbage when you first get there, and then start improving, and you'll get the most improved.
That makes a lot of sense. It does. I wish I was that smart to figure that out then. Instead of, no, I had to. I knew virtually every skill a basic soldier needed to know before I even went to basic. Because of the delayed entry program, I was not a DEP yet. But on the DEP weekends through the recruiter's office, I was the demonstrator. You would have one of the recruiters from the station or from the recruiting command in Santa Rosa, Petaluma, Sebastopol, Fairfield, Vallejo, Vacaville, Novato, all in that area in Northern California, would all get together, and all their DEPs would meet up at a park in somebody's town. And I always ended up being the demonstrator. So I knew how to field strip and clean an M16 before I went to basic. I knew how to emplace a Claymore mine. I knew how to set up everything. I knew every knot to tie for basic. I had literally 4 years of learning all this, 12 different skills a year that I had to learn. So I knew all these skills when I went into basic.
Was boot camp a challenge for you, or did some of that prepping beforehand make it much easier than it would have been had you not had that planning or preparing before? Or is it still just the challenges of being away from home, that homesickness, right? A lot of people go through it. I went through it when I went through boot camp.
That was, for me, that was the hardest, was being away from home.
It's the mental aspect, right?
The
It's not the
mental
physical.
aspect
It's
was,
not the and when we say mental aspect, as far as that being the most difficult part for me, it was being away from home. It was not being able to do whatever I wanted to when I wanted to, having to be exactly on their schedule, even something as simple as eating when I want. I know we were talking about that earlier. I mean,
hmm
when you're in boot camp, you have those set times that you eat and that's it. You
yeah,
don't get little snacks, you don't get to do things like that. And it seems so simple, but yet it makes a huge difference when you're there and you don't have that control that you normally have.
yeah, those little luxuries in life.
Hmm.
Yeah, they're they're not afforded to a recruit.
And that was the hardest part for you. Were there any certain, maybe some of the combat training or some of the field training? Was any of that difficult? Did you go through during you went through during the summer months, right?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
It was well, it was end of February, March, April. So really, it was the spring months.
Was it cold?
Missouri can be very cold at that time. Yes.
Mhm. And that I believe would make it a challenge. I mean, when I was a drill instructor in the Marine Corps, I hated the winter months. I mean, that seemed, in my opinion, to add on to the challenge of going through the Crucible, which is the 3-day training event that transforms a recruit into a Marine. It's the final transformation. And those winter months, I mean, that just seemed brutal for those recruits.
It was cold. Having to, and learning in the military or in the army that all your cold weather gear is heavier than your springtime and your summer gear.
Mm.
Was even better prepared for my unit when I got to my division. But yeah, it just it was more weight, and as a recruit, or it's sitting in basic boot, whatever branch of the service you were in and whatever you called it, it's everything is a mind fuck. Everything. So when you realize that when I went through basic, I had to carry this cold weather gear, which is 5 to 10 pounds heavier than what I would normally carry in the summer or the spring, um, really pissed me off. I was like, motherfuckers, they got me. They got me good. But then I realized, I'm looking around, everybody's in the same uniform as me, different rank, different times in service, but they all had to do the same thing. So it wasn't that big of a deal after a
Well, the
little
five
while.
to 10 pounds, it does make a difference,
Oh, it does.
especially over an extended period of time. I mean, somebody may think 35 pounds doesn't sound like that much, but when you're carrying it for, 12, 15, 20 miles, it does some wear and tear. I mean, you start to feel it on your shoulders, you feel it on your back, your lower back. I mean, you start getting sharp pains in your back, your feet start to hurt. I mean, it all starts to build up and it becomes pretty painful. So 5 to 10 pounds, as small as that may sound, over an extended period of time can make a huge difference.
Yeah, it does. It makes a major difference. Um, so back to me being prepared for basic, probably a little bit more so than most, but it doesn't matter. The drill sergeants see where you're at. They know they can determine your skill level rather quick, and they find other ways to fuck you.
Well, if you were to give somebody advice who was thinking about joining the Army, what advice would you give them?
It doesn't matter what branch of the service. Fucking work out. Be ready to run. Be ready to walk miles a day. Um, you can try to prepare yourself mentally. You can have your mom and dad yell at you every single day, but it's not going to work. I used to joke about that. Now, these drill sergeants, they're not that tough. My mom's tougher than they are. But that was just a joke. There was no truth to that whatsoever.
Well, and the thing that makes it difficult, because I've had people tell this to me before, and you may have heard it where they say, "Oh, I would yell back at the drill instructor, or I would do this." And yeah, it's easy to say when
Mm-hmm.
you're not actually there, but when you're there
Yep.
and they control everything, they're the door that prevents you from leaving. They're the door that prevents you from graduating. I mean, so it changes the entire outlook or your personal outlook. So people, I never, as a drill instructor, I never had a recruit yell at me. I mean, it
Yeah.
doesn't work that way.
Everybody can talk about being tough.
Yeah,
Go out and
everybody
be
thinks they're
tough.
tough till they're there
Yeah.
in the moment, and then it's like, okay, wow, this is real.
The toughest thing to do is to keep your mouth shut and actually work through it.
Mm,
It's you I mean, everybody's a badass in their own mind, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
but now at the same time, you don't want to act weak either, right? You don't want to go there with the giant head on your shoulder because that's not going to work out very well. But you
No.
also don't want to act weak because from a drill instructor's perspective or a drill sergeant's perspective or any of the branches, it really doesn't matter. If one's acting really weak, that's just adding fuel to the fire,
Yeah.
right? If I see somebody that's about to cry, I'm going to yell at him even more to see if I can get him to cry, right? So don't go there acting weak. Go there instead with the mentality of enjoying the pain, embracing the suck, right? So
Yeah.
if you're, what do they call it in the Army when you're being IT'd?
IT
Is it the same thing? Intensive training or incentive training?
incentive training. You're talking
Right.
extra
Push-ups.
push-ups.
Yep. Those things. So when
Um,
you're being told to do push-ups, I always suggest doing it with not necessarily a smile, but don't show the pain,
right.
right? Demonstrate that, or at least have the idea that it's making you stronger. And if you look at it that way, when they are yelling at you, it was more fun for me as a drill instructor to yell at a recruit that was about to cry, that was falling apart, than one that enjoyed it, right? Because then what's the point of that, you know? So that's a big pointer. Now, how long was your break? So you went through boot camp in 89?
89.
89. So do you have a 10-day break when you
Um,
graduate boot camp?
yes. Yeah. For me, I went to airborne school first. So I had 4 weeks at Fort Benning, Georgia. I went from Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, Fort Benning, Georgia, and then I got to go home for 10, 12 days. Um, and back to you were talking about, those showing weakness or those with a chip on the shoulder. Anywhere in life where you show irritability and you've got somebody above you, your boss, they're going to use that against you. They will find a way to make sure that irritability is either ceases, or they find a way to build upon it and just make you even more miserable.
That's what I was about to say. When you said ceases, it's like, well, boss probably isn't going to tolerate that.
Right.
They want performers.
Yeah. If it's something that a motivator can use to motivate you, they're going to make sure it sticks.
Who motivates the motivator?
Motivation, right?
That's right. So graduating boot camp now, your MOS was combat engineer.
Yes, I was a 12 Bravo combat engineer.
So what does a combat engineer do?
Combat engineer gets to blow shit up and build it back up again.
Build lots of bridges, right?
Technically, that is what a combat engineer's main job is: build bridges in place, remove mines, minefields in place, and remove barriers and concertina wire for forward operating bases. They also have another role, which is called a sapper, and they have a school for that called the Sapper Leader Course, and that's also at Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, which I ended up going back for. So I got to spend another 25 glorious days in Missouri, which was, for me, Missouri is the state where my biological father's family comes from. So it was kind of cool to actually go there and be there. But
how long was your MOS school?
It was 4 weeks.
4 weeks? And
Yeah.
you said you had to go back?
Well, I had to go back for another school, the Sapper Leadership Course.
Okay, it was at the same location.
Yeah.
Okay. 1 month, that actually isn't that long. Did you have to do combat training as well on top of that? So
combat engineer, that was my combat training.
I'm referencing the Marine Corps for this.
Right.
When somebody graduates Marine Corps boot camp, if they are infantry, they go to School of Infantry.
Mm-hmm.
If they are any other MOS, they first have to go to MCT, which is Marine Combat Training. And that's about a 3-week course, 4 weeks, something like that. I'm not quite sure. And after that, then they go to their primary MOS school.
That's kind of a difference between the Marine Corps and the Army right there is your MOS is your MOS. You don't, if your main job isn't, every soldier's main job is to carry a rifle somewhere, but your main job might not be to use that rifle ever.
So the extent of the training with the rifle is in boot camp, unless that is your primary MOS?
Unless you're in a combat MOS. Or in the Army, we call it combat arms. I think the Marine Corps might call it the same.
Similar.
Yeah, more or less. If you're in a combat arms MOS, infantry, combat engineer, cavalry scout, artilleryman, the special forces types, you've got your M16. I think it's an M4 now, right?
Is there annual rifle qualification?
Yes.
What about pistol qualification? They do that as well.
Or machine gunners and officers, I believe they still do that. Yes.
So you still had to qual every single year.
Oh, I
So I
had to
mean,
qual every year.
that's something they say in the Marine Corps is every Marine is a rifleman. But I mean, if you're having a qual, if you're Army as well, I mean, I'd say that would go. I mean,
Yeah.
door swings both ways as
Or
far as
even in I believe they call it 71 Lima, which are the clerks. They have to qualify every year. So yeah,
So what was your qualification?
I always shot expert. I shot expert with everything in my hands.
Is it the same thing? Expert, sharpshooter, and marksman?
Yes.
Sharpshooter's middle, expert's top, and the
Yes.
marksman. In the Marine Corps, they get a little pizza box.
Oh, do they?
Yeah, it's a little square badge.
Yeah.
Yep, and everybody says, "Oh, you got the pizza box." Nobody wants a pizza box. Everybody wants at least minimum sharpshooter, but
Yeah.
of course, expert is the way to go.
Expert's always the way to go.
Mhm.
I've been shooting a rifle since I was about 6 years old.
Did that affect you at all in boot camp? Did you have to unlearn some of the
I
things
had to
that?
unlearn everything I was taught, other than knowing that a weapon recoils.
Mm,
That and even then, the M16 really doesn't have much of a recoil unless you're
Yeah,
firing
no.
it full auto or the A2s in 3-round burst. Um, yeah, no, this for me, I had to qualify every year with my weapons. You know, and being an M60 gunner, I was first I was an ammo carrier, then I got to be the gunner in the team, then I got to be the team leader. And typically, the team leader is doesn't fire the M60 in a team in a machine gun team in the Army.
Same
But
thing in the Marine Corps.
I wouldn't let go of the M60. I don't remember ever pulling out my M16 for a field exercise or any deployment. I always drew the M60.
When did it transfer over to the 240?
It was after my time, I believe. But I still, looking back, you can watch documentaries right now, and I think that the 240 actually came into existence somewhere around 92.
I think the Army even had it before the Marine Corps did.
Yes, the Army gets everything before the Marine Corps.
Garbage.
Well, the best first.
Well, the National Guard, I believe, gets supplied better than the Army does.
Well, yeah, because you've got nothing. You've got federal funding and state funding going into it. So every governor wants their soldiers to look a little bit better than the rest.
So
right?
they have the best gear, which doesn't make any sense if you think about it, because I mean, you would imagine that the Army, the one that's actually being assigned, which during a time of war, the National Guard will be sent into a place of combat, which happened during OIF 1 and OIF 2, because I trained and worked with the National Guard out there. But you would imagine the ones who are in it the most,
Yeah.
right? They would have the best supply, the
and
best
the most
gear.
of it. Yeah.
Not walking around holding your, night vision goggles because you don't have a Kevlar mount. One hand chicken winging the rifle with the other hand.
Yeah, I never did. When I was in, I never did see a mount for night vision. There was a couple of straps you can throw over your head, but nothing fit well with your K-pot on. So,
Although everybody hated it though, because it added weight to that uncomfortable, unpleasant helmet.
yeah,
Those helmets are not comfortable.
no, there is nothing comfortable
No.
about it.
It's the worst.
I almost wonder if the old steel pots would have been better.
I think the helmets now have gotten a lot better though.
Yeah.
I don't think they're nearly as unpleasant as they were, and it was probably even better when I went in.
Well, I think what they need is not an infantryman to design or test all the straps, because an infantryman will just suck it up and say, "Yeah, this is fine."
Oh, so someone who's not infantry,
Yeah,
so admin or something.
yeah. Get a clerk out there to go test the straps and all the webbing inside of a helmet, and they'll let you know if it's comfortable or not.
I think they have improved them though. But going back to the MOS, or your job rather, so you did what, 4 years total?
4 years in the Army.
So you got out
93.
93.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was in third grade in 93.
Wow. Yeah. So you're that little kid I was defending.
There you go.
Yeah, well.
Yeah, I mean, I remember during your time, I mean, you were in during the first Gulf War.
Right.
Did you have to partake in any of that?
No.
I know you didn't go over there, correct?
I didn't go over there, no. The only thing that we got to do was we got to go out to NTC. I was in a light infantry division, 25th Infantry Division. We got to go out to NTC in Fort Irwin and go see how well
what's
light
NTC?
infantry can chase around armor in the sand. And
what's NTC stand for?
National Training Center, Fort Irwin, California. And it didn't really work out very well. They always find you. You can't ever find them. Heat signatures and all. It's very hard for guys on foot to chase down tanks. It was 35 plus miles an hour. So, yeah, not very easy.
So you said you ended up doing or spending some time as a machine gunner.
Yes.
But your MOS was combat engineer. How did
Yes.
that end up happening?
Well, every squad in the Army is made up virtually the same format. You've got rifle teams, you've got machine gun teams, and and it doesn't matter what your MOS is. Even if you're a clerk, there's a machine gun team in your squad. Now, and you still have to go out and go qualify with that weapon.
Interesting. I did not know that.
Yeah, it's not just made up with a whole bunch of M16s and then a bunch of pens in the pockets. You know, these guys, they still have to go out and and prove that they're still a soldier every year. So for myself, I did a lot of Overwatch. I did a lot of perimeter security when things were happening. But I'm kind of a light frame, a small frame. I'm tall and lanky. But you know, I could carry that M60 with me everywhere. 25-mile road marches. I'm not giving up my M60. You know, I always thought that if I was ever in a firefight, I wanted the thing that shot the most lead down range, put up a steel wall between me and the bad guy.
Do you remember the weight to the M60?
I couldn't tell you the exact weight, but after 4 years, it was nothing. Really, I mean,
It has to be close to the 240, I would imagine.
that 240 looks like it's heavier.
It's 24.2 pounds.
Yeah, the 240 to me looks like a lot. It's bulkier and heavier to carry. That M60 seemed like, you know, I mean, looking at it, to me, it just looks like a streamlined mean machine. You know, it's
Well, did it also have I mean, it was a crew-served weapon, so I'm imagining you still had the tripod.
yeah, the T&E.
The T&E. The T&E is the traversing and elevation
elevation.
mechanism. So that's a lot of people, when they hear somebody speaking about a machine gun, they think it is just that shooting lead down range. But in the Marine Corps, which I'm sure it's very similar in the Army, mission of a machine gunner is to provide a heavy controlled volume of long-range accurate machine gun fire.
Machine
And
gun
that's something
fire.
that I'm trying
Accurate
to
is the key
enunciate.
word
The
there.
accurate, yeah. I mean, it's not just putting lead down range, it's aiming in on the target. When we're using the tripod and the T&E, the traversing and elevation mechanism, that's given us the ability to lock this on spot on target. And that's why you have the team leader, because the team leader helps put additional pressure on the gunner to keep that machine gun as stable as humanly possible. And then, of course, the ammo man is providing ammo and rear security.
And rear security.
So that's, I'm assuming, the same in the Army.
It's the exact same. Yeah,
So-
three-man fire team in any branch of the service in any country probably operates exactly the same as everyone else.
Very similar, yeah. Of course, the Marine Corps does it a little better, but
well, you know, that's left up for argument.
Okay, so your primary job was still being a combat engineer, but you had to learn the job of a machine gunner,
Yes,
and you still had to train that and still had to do field ops and things like that, and
Correct.
and keep that skill set honed in case there was a reason that you had to implement it when you're in a combat situation.
correct.
Okay. Now, what is the likelihood? Because I've heard a story before that there were combat engineers that were working on a bridge in a combat zone, and this was Army, and they were working on the bridge without their weapons.
That, if I heard somebody tell me that story, I would tell them they're full of fucking shit. My M16 or my M60 in basic training in AIT, my M16 was strapped on my back, and I was carrying M2 Bailey bridge panels.
Yeah, so it didn't matter if you were up on the bridge working,
Right.
right? So what if your commanding officer gave you that order?
Well, you're supposed to do everything a commanding officer tells you to do, but
Unless
unless it's an unlawful order.
So would that be an unlawful order? I mean, if it's putting yourself into a dangerous position.
If I'm in a war zone, a combat situation, and I was told I didn't have to carry my weapon with me, I would look at the person like they needed to be in an insane asylum.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, when I was out in combat, I'm not going to say who it was, but I was told by a higher up at one point to dummy cord our grenades onto our vest. And
John
everybody
Wayne?
looked over and we said, think about that. Really? Is that
Yeah.
really smart to dummy cord your grenades onto
No.
your vest? No, of course not. So nobody did it.
That's fucking ridiculous.
It's retarded, is
Yeah.
what it is.
I'd have filed a complaint to somebody about that one.
Hey, some people slip through the cracks.
Yeah, yeah.
You know?
I guess in every branch, right?
Exactly right. Every branch, no doubt about it. But there are some exceptional leaders too, which balance it out.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I've got to say in my 4 years in the Army, I had some great officers to work with, and I had some terrible NCOs to work with. But those terrible NCOs were always outweighed by the great NCOs,
Mm-hmm.
and even good NCOs. The good ones become great at one point in time. Somewhere
Yeah.
down the line, they become great NCOs.
And leadership can be taught.
I hear that. I've never seen it.
I've seen it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Or somebody who has the potential to be a leader, but they're choosing not to be. They're choosing to be the shitbag version of
Well,
themselves.
then they're not being taught to be a leader at some point. They're just going. They're just determining amongst with themselves
Well, what
at some.
defines that though?
Well, that's just them releasing it. That's not being taught it. So show me somebody could be taught leadership.
Learning through observation, right? If you work with somebody who is a good leader, quite often you'll pick up some of the traits,
All right, I can
uh,
buy that.
especially if you're looking up to them and you want to emulate them, right? Then
Right.
you
Okay.
try to follow along and you try to do those things, and that's why it is also really important to be around people that you want to be like.
That's a great argument right there. I would still say that you can't have a book to teach somebody to be a leader. But your argument definitely, I never thought of it that way. Yes. So
I
yeah,
had some.
I will say that through example, you can be taught leadership, but
Mhm.
you can't be taught leadership through a book with a pen and a paper.
Yeah, you definitely need more than that. You need immersion. You need to be involved with it. You need to um, trial and error.
Okay.
Seeing what works, seeing what if you're running into a situation where you have some subordinates and you're trying to figure something out, you're trying to adapt. But here's the thing too: you can learn a lot from a book as well. I mean, a book that I'm listening to currently is, and some of our listeners probably have read it or are reading it, and it's called Extreme Ownership by Jocko.
Jocko Willink.
Yep. So very well known, very famous Navy SEAL for some of the things that he's done. And I mean, I think I learned a lot just from listening to the audiobook, which I highly recommend too, because he actually reads it. So it's not somebody else's voice reading it. It's
Right.
actually Jocko. And he's the one with, his business partner or fellow author, because it was written by him and one other Navy SEAL. And it's phenomenal. I mean, the fact that he's reading it too, you become more involved with it. It's
Right.
it's not somebody else just reading it. It's
Not some monotonous.
Yeah, I think when somebody, now we're going on a different subject, but I've listened to so many different audiobooks, and the ones that grab my attention personally are the ones that are read by the author, because they're actually putting their heart and soul into it. They're the ones that
Hmm.
wrote it. They're the ones that care about it, and you can hear it when you're listening to it. And
I've
his is really good, but it talks all about leadership.
I've never been a big audiobook fan. I still like the old hard copy in my hand.
Yeah, I enjoy reading a book too, but it's good when you're driving, if you're going from one location to the next. And being out here at the Cammies and Canine Sanctuary, I spend probably on average an hour a day driving.
Wow. Yeah. So we are kind of out here.
Hmm. So it makes a difference. But so now let's fast forward. You get out of the Army, because I also want people to know, again, the story after the military. So knowing, unless there's more you want to share, of course, about
Um,
your experiences in the military.
well, no, I don't think. I think everybody gets the gist of it there. Right after the military, I had a few months to collect myself, visit some family and friends. I tried to stay away from my hometown a little bit. I didn't want to get in any trouble or get caught up with any kind of crap that all my old friends that may have been were involved in at the time. And I traveled. I drove around for a few months, and but I signed up to go to school. I went to college at North Dakota State University, Fargo, North Dakota, and
And you got your master's, right, or bachelor's?
I have a bachelor's in
Bachelor's.
history. Yeah, which means I can write books.
You don't have to have a bachelor's to write books.
No, but that's about. I mean, if you don't have a master's or some kind of a PhD, I mean the only thing I could do is teach, and some unfortunate incidences in my life after college um, have relegated me to a life of not teaching, which is something in my mind I wanted to do.
Well, you still have an opportunity to teach on the podcast, right?
Well, I guess so then.
And history, so they often say that history repeats itself. Being a history buff, what things have you seen, or maybe in your own life, where you've been able to learn from things that others have done and been able to implement it in your own life to find success or to find your passion or to find, fill in the blank?
Um, Learning from from what other people have done. Um, I've never been able to learn from another person's mistake. Hell, I've had a hard time learning from my own. Um, History repeating itself. History. Look at the fashion industry. bell bottoms come back, then they run away, then they come back, then they run away. Tight jeans, loose jeans, skinny jeans. Now they're just tight jeans again. Um, so yeah, with the fashion industry, a fad. Yeah, they come and they go. I don't know. There's people who enjoy pop music. Pop music is I think what Billboards is the pop charts, right? But in my mind, um, the music industry kind of just is another circle of history repeating itself.
Hmm.
A new style of music comes out, much like when rock and roll first came out. It wasn't the most popular brand of music out there, but it's starting to it's coming back around again with alternative and I don't know, whatever new fad is out there. I still listen to classic rock, and I don't turn on the radio much anymore. I download my music for free.
Pandora, YouTube.
Pandora, all these different YouTube downloaders, and they pull, they just pull out the MP4 sound files or MP3 sound files and save your song to your phone.
And now I want to kind of jump ahead and get to a point where I think a lot of our viewers and future viewers and things and what they're going to be interested about, and it's that, and you can share as much as you want or as much as you do not want, right?
Right.
Your experiences and what led you to the point of being homeless for a certain period of time. Like what caused that? Because a lot of times people will see somebody who's homeless on the street and they will ignore them. They will give them the cold shoulder, or they'll say they're there because of drugs or they're there because of alcohol or some other sort of issue. And if they're on the streets, then how come they don't have family or friends to help them, right?
Right.
What led up to your position that you found yourself in?
Well, I have been homeless. I was homeless. But let me go ahead and jump back just a little bit here, back to college. I graduated in 4 years. I played a team sport. It was a club sport. It wasn't paintball. It is not a official college NCAA recognized sport. It's a club sport where different college
But it was
clubs
paintball.
get together. But that led to a professional paintball career for me. I played paintball for 2 years.
Yeah, those of you that love paintball, you can make a career out of it.
You can, and you can make a lot of money out of it too. You can also make jack shit out of it, but you can make
You got
a
to
lot
be
of
good,
money.
right?
In 1998, 1999, I made over 80,000 a year playing paintball, which is not bad money. That's legitimate, actual dollars in my pocket.
I mean, that sounds like a fun career, and that's more than what most people make in the United States, I believe.
I would have to say that's above average,
Well,
even
especially
now.
at that time.
Yeah, especially at that time.
You
And
said
even
98?
now, that's probably above average. And I mean, it's definitely not the league minimum for a veteran NFL player.
Oh, yeah.
But
Well, with inflation, I mean, that's got to be closer to maybe 100,000 now. I
I
don't
would
know
say
what the numbers
easily
would be.
100,000. And I think paintball players right now would love to try to make 100,000 a year, at the pro level. I don't think they. I'm sure they're close to that, but I don't know if they really are.
So you
I
got
haven't
into
really
the
followed.
career though of paintballing by paintballing in college.
Through college,
I didn't
playing
even know
on
you
the
could do that.
well, in college, I had to pay my way. I had to buy my own paint. I had to buy my own marker, all my own gear. But as good as I was in college, it brought upon sponsorships. I was sponsored by Dangerous Arms. I was sponsored by Bob Long. I was sponsored by Halo. I was sponsored by Viewloader. I was sponsored by RP Shear paint maker. I had and they would give me all the equipment I needed. I no longer had to pay my way. The only thing I initially had to pay was all my travel expenses. And being knowing what paintball was in college, I went out and I started. I got a job as a waiter again at an Applebee's, and I convinced this guy who owned this string of Applebee's all throughout California and Hawaii to sponsor my team. And so he sponsored my team as far as entry fees and travel expenses. And all we had to do was give him a trophy every tournament. And if we didn't, then he wouldn't pay for the next one. We had to pay for the next one, and show up with a trophy, and then he would pay for the next one.
It's a
that
good
was his
deal. He
thing.
wants a winning team.
Yeah, he wanted a winning team.
I don't blame him.
Yeah, I don't either. So we always made sure we placed. We were good enough that we placed. We ended up going to a World Cup tournament. We were number 64 in the world. We were the lowest ranked team in the world. And we would show up in Florida, and every team obviously paid their way there. And there's teams from all over the world. And we're talking British SAS teams, Special Forces teams, Marine Recon guys that are in teams. And most of the guys, and then you have your professional league teams that show up, and everybody wants to prove that they're the best. And now Team Extreme, that was our name. We did not win that year, but being the 64th team in the world, really we're the 64th team that could afford to show up. We came in second, and we gave the number one team, Team Ironman, a run for their money.
That's not bad.
We went down to 2 guys to 1, and I happened to be the last guy on my team standing until I got knocked out. They flanked me.
And how old were you at the time?
Let's see, this is 1998. This is our first full year as a professional paintball team.
And that was your most profitable year? That's when you made the 80?
I made about 80 grand that year. That brought on some more sponsorship. I had Team Ironman try to pull me up off of my team and play for them. I had 7, 8 other teams that kept calling around asking if I wanted to play and offer me a base salary.
I mean, this sounds like such a fun career so many people would love to have. So
yeah.
Why'd you stop?
Paintball changed. Literally right after about 1999, paintball went to these arenas inflatable events where you hide behind a balloon that you see on TV now. And it looks like a whole lot of fun, and it really truly still is. But for me, it wasn't woods ball. It wasn't outdoors, out in the woods, hiding behind a tree, using natural terrain.
Don't they call it speedball?
Speedball is exactly what this is nowadays. It's 7-man speedball.
And can you still make a living off of it, though?
These guys, from what I hear, they make a really good living off of it.
But you have to be at the top level.
You have to be at the very top level.
At this point, do you think you could get yourself to that point?
Me right now, in my mental mindset and the shape I'm in, I know I can hack it. I don't know if my knees could hack it. But
well, you are a pretty hard worker. I mean, you wrap those knees up. You take some of that, what is it? Glutamine or glucosamine, right? For the joints.
Those shots that they do, cortisone shots.
Or some of that stem cell research.
I mean, knowing that matches don't last very long, but you could play still 3 or 4 matches a day, and you have alternates on the team. That if being the old guy on a team, I could do it. I want to believe I can, anyways.
What are your plans, though?
My plans?
You don't plan on going back and doing paintball. What are your current plans right now?
My current plans right now? Well, I've been in the Cammies Canines Sanctuary for just about a week, under 6 months right now, and this is a 6-month-long program. So my plans are to stay on this ranch, which I've been afforded the opportunity to stay on this ranch, become a staff member. I will have for those of you who are military minded, I will be the camp commandant out here at our sanctuary.
Well, you pretty much already are the camp commandant.
Well, officially I don't have the title yet, but yeah.
Isn't that what they say? Act as the position you want to be, not the position that you are in.
Correct. Yeah, I always strive for something better. If you're digging a ditch right now, strive to be that guy that's standing outside of the ditch. I mean, you don't want to be digging a ditch for the rest of your life, right?
Yep.
I mean, if you love it, hey, stick with it. But you strive for that next position. So I want to say right now, I'm striving to be the director of this program here. I think the current director would have a little bit of a problem with that, but
hey, not if we expand. I mean, you could be Midwest director.
Hey, Northern California.
Or whatever it is, right?
Where is the next largest veteran community in America besides? I mean, I know San Diego is the largest, correct?
San Diego is, if not the largest, it's definitely one of the largest. Let's rewind for a minute. Okay. So I want to finish up where we were with paintball. It was the end of the 90s.
End of the 90s, paintball.
It changed up.
The events changed. The venues changed from outdoor in the woods and natural environment to these artificial balloons. Plus, it was in my life at that time. It was time. I wanted to change. I loved playing paintball. I just wanted it at that point. I wanted it wanted it to be something that was just fun for me to do on a weekend here and there. Yeah, so paintball changed for me. And then other things in my life started to change. I met a woman I wanted to marry. My son was born. And it was time to settle down and find a career, something to do around home instead of traveling around so much. So I started getting to researching electric vehicle technology. It wasn't huge at the time. Nobody even heard of Tesla then. Nobody was making hybrids, and so the only avenue for me to the only way for me to get an electric vehicle technology was to start working on golf carts. So I got into the golf cart industry, and I just became a golf cart technician, and I started working on golf carts. I didn't. I wanted to aspire. I was aspiring to be more, but a golf cart tech was really it. Other than doing some conversions here and there wasn't a whole lot of electric vehicles. There's really maybe one in every million cars on the road was an electric vehicle. So golf carts was it for me. That's and that's where I started to make some money. Working for various golf cart dealerships in Northern California, I learned how to fix, how to maintain, how to repair every single type of golf cart on the road.
So you're working for somebody though. You weren't
Yes.
working independently?
No, not for myself. No, that came 2007. I opened up a dealership with my dad, and we were around for a couple of years. Terrible time to open up a business. No one had.
Well, it was right before the crash too.
Yeah,
2008
right
crash.
before the crash, and I mean, nobody had any extra money to go buy a golf cart to put in their garage, to drive out once a week, to a golf course. Nobody was doing that. It was really, really tough. I still made some money at it, but it wasn't tough.
How long did it last for?
We were open for 2 years. I ended up selling the dealership. My dad just decided he was done with it. He got out. I told him just to take what's in the bank account. That's yours, Pops. I'll make do with whatever's here. I pulled out another 10 grand out of my own bank account, and I made it work, just to keep make sure I had a little something to fall back on so that I can keep the doors open. And one day I was like, I was done with it, and I'm going to sell this business, and boom, we're all said and done, and now we've kind of like jumped around a little bit. I've had some successes in my life, short periods of success. I've also had in my life some major periods of being in a rut. 2001, I was sentenced to prison for 2 years. Actually, I was sentenced for 3 years, and I went for 2. In 2015, I was sentenced to a 1-year stint in the county jail here in San Diego County. I did 6 months out of that in the Veterans Moving Forward program up at the Vista Jail. And at that point, I completely jumped ahead, and I skipped over a lot of the details through all that, but I want to get to where I'm at now.
Well, we have time, so if you want to talk about what caused it or what got you to that point, you're more than welcome to.
Okay, well, maybe I'll jump back a little bit here and there with it. So 2015, I got sent to jail. I did 6 months in the San Diego system here. I did a wonderful program, Veterans Moving Forward, I believe is what they call it, out at the Vista Jail. Retired Master Gunnery Sergeant started the program. Morales is his name. I can't remember his first name, but if you ever listen to this, Gunny Morales, man, you're a phenomenal inspiration. And what the work that he does with veterans and the continue on work, when you graduate that program that he does, that he established. I believe he's not part of that program anymore. I'm not sure. I haven't looked into it. But what he's done for veterans is amazing, and that's been surpassed in my mind by Kalani Kritzberg. That that ideal, um, that ideal leader in the veteran community for me was Gunny Morales, and that guy he is an inspiration. But man, nobody works as hard as Kalani Kritzberg does for veterans, for mankind. I'll say seriously. But so 2015, I get out of jail. I go and I have to report to the probation office. And for a couple of weeks, I was homeless out here in San Diego County, because I had gone to the wrong office. That I reported to the wrong office. They told me, you're going to have to report to this office, which was off the University on Ohio Street, somewhere around there, I think. I don't think that's even open anymore. So, and here you report in 2 weeks, and I'm thinking to myself, 2 weeks? What the fuck am I going to do on the streets for 2 weeks? So making some phone calls home, try to arrange some funds to be sent to me so I can go get a hotel room. Realize that I got out of jail without an ID card, no way to get a hotel room. So essentially I'm fucked. In my mind, that's what I'm thinking. So I go and I hit some Western Unions up. I get the money that, my family sent, try to get a hotel room, doesn't work. Ended up just going to an old neighbor of mine when I lived in San Diego for a short amount of time leading up to this, leading up to me being incarcerated. And an old neighbor let me rent his garage from him for 2 weeks. Motherfucker charged me like $650 fucking dollars.
For 2 weeks?
For 2 fucking weeks.
I was about to say, sound like a good buddy up until the price.
Yeah, I thought so too. But I was thankful for it still. But even so, he had a landlord and he had neighbors, and so I try to make myself disappear during the days, come back around nighttime. So San Diego. I'd have to say San Diego is not. There's a lot of homeless people out here. The area I was in was not really friendly to people who are homeless. So I grab books, go out to the local park, kick back, read books, and just wait for this 2 weeks to end.
Where were you sleeping at the time?
Pardon?
Where were you sleeping at the time?
I was sleeping in my buddy's garage. He had a hideaway couch in there. It was like his little man cave. So it was kind of cool.
But even before, what I meant is before you had the garage, or were you able to get the garage right away?
I got it actually right away.
Oh, okay.
I think one night I was wandering around.
You didn't sleep though? You just walked around?
I just walked around. I was in that downtown area and didn't know which bus to take out or trolley I could take out to, where I was living, the Paradise Hills area. And then finally I figured it all out that next morning. Well, when the transit system wakes up and starts moving about, I figured, I had figured it all out, and boom, I'm on my way. So, there was 2 weeks I had to wait, and I go into probation and I reported one time and one time only, and told them my situation. And they literally told me, well, we don't do anything about that here. See ya. So, and I said, well, hold on. What do you mean you don't do anything about that? I'm telling you, I'm homeless. I have nowhere to go. And you're telling me you have nothing to offer me? There's nothing at all you can offer me? No. I said, well, then I'm out of here. What makes you think I'm going to sit around here and be homeless on the streets? She said, if you leave, we'll find you and arrest you and bring you back. And I said, well, good luck finding me. I'm leaving tomorrow morning. I'll be at the bus station. If you think you can figure something out for me by then, you can meet me there. But I'm out of here at 9:15. I hopped on that bus and I left. Didn't even look back.
That's a risky move.
Yeah, it is. Come to find out 2 years later how risky it was. Or, 2-3 years later. 2015, we're talking now, it's October, Halloween Day, 2017. I'm living in Mojave, California. I've got a great job, making about, base salary is almost 80 grand a year. With all the overtime I was working and being seconded out to all these different companies that worked out in the wind farm out there in Mojave, making pretty close to it. For my first year there, I made almost $120,000. My second year, I was at this point In October, I was already over $99,000 for the year. And I still had what two months to go, 3 months to go, really. So not bad. Single guy, a couple of kids, some grandkids, and all grown at this time. My son, he's in Cairo. He's teaching English in Cairo. My daughter is she's given me 3 wonderful grandchildren, um, and they're no expenses. I have no expenses other than just showering my family with this money that I've always liked making money. Never have known what to do with it, so I just give it to the grandkids and the kids. Let them figure something out with it. As long as as long as I'm taken care of and I can go out and you know travel somewhere, within a day's drive, I'm happy. I don't need much unless it's a really good piece of meat. A great steak, lots of rice, and I'm happy. So, it doesn't take much to make me happy. To be content and to be satisfied with my life. So Halloween Day 2017, I'm out at my work truck. I've got no t-shirt on. I'm wearing shorts, some sandals. I'm just going out to go grab a pack of cigarettes in my wallet that I had left in the truck the night before. My girlfriend's sitting in the house. She knows I stepped outside, and automatically, within me just barely shutting this door on my work truck, a cop pulls up behind me, a sheriff's deputy, Kern County Sheriff's, and asks me what I'm doing. And I tell him, well, I'm just getting my wallet and cigarettes out of the truck. And he says, let me see your license and registration. Is that your truck? And I said, come on, man, you've seen this thing here before. I know I've seen you drive by before. Why are you hassling me? And he said, let me just see your license and registration. And I know I've been absconding from San Diego County probation for 2 years at this point. And I know the moment I hand him my ID, he's going to run my name and find out I have a warrant for my arrest. So I tell him, I said, yeah, here's the ID. Here's the registration. It's registered to work, to the company I work for. And you're gonna want you might as well just cuff me up now and throw me in the back of your car. He said, why? I said, because I've been absconding from San Diego County for 2 years. He goes, well, let me find that out. I said, okay, you go ahead and find that out. And he says, you know what, buddy? Thanks for being honest with me, man, but you're right. I got to cuff you up and stuff you in the back of my car. And that's what he did. So I sat in the Kern County system from the Mojave jail down to Bakersfield. Bakersfield downtown Central sends me to some off-site detention facility they have. I'm there for, I don't know, 12 days trying to figure out what San Diego County is going to do. Are they going to come pick me up? Are they going to cite and release me? Tell me to go report? Are they going to transfer me to another county jail and pick me up from there? I've got like 3 different stories now from the correctional officers there, what they're going to do. And one morning, 4 o'clock, they call me up and say, Firth, we're releasing you. And I said, what? Yeah, roll your stuff up. You're getting released. And I'm thinking to myself, oh, cool. I'm just going to get cited and released, and then I'll just have to travel on my own down to San Diego. So they're dressing me out. I'm thinking that, I'm getting out. And they're like, no, you're not getting out. We're just putting you in your street clothes. We're going to transfer you to Santa Ana. You're going to Orange County, and then from Orange County, San Diego will pick you up. Fuck. It's all fuck this. I don't, this is bullshit. This is fucked up, and then it's like, shut up, Bryan. You did this to yourself. All you had to do is just fucking follow the rules. Be homeless, but follow the rules. And then again to myself, I'm like, fuck that. These people want me to stay in their county, then they need to afford me to stay in their county. How they can force you to be homeless is just ridiculous. I mean, this is America, isn't it? So go through all this transfer, go to Orange County. I stay there for a day. San Diego picks me up, throws me back into the system. I get this judge, and she was, you signed a stupid ass deal. And I said, I probably did. She goes, well, I'm taking into account that you served your country. I'm taking into account that you weren't fucking up on the streets when you were out there, when you were absconding for 2 years. That's all you did was abscond. You didn't fuck around. There's no new arrests for new charges or any of that. I'm taking that into consideration. And I'm taking into consideration that you've got to be the dumbest motherfucker on the planet to sign the plea deal that you did 3 years ago. So I'm going to change this for you. You've done a year in county jail, or you've done with credit, you've done a year in the county jail already. 6 months plus your credits equals a year. You've been running around for the last 30 days through two different county, or your third county jail detention facility system. So I'm going to just go ahead and change your deal to your sentencing to 2 years with credit for time served. And right now you owe me 155 days. And I thought to myself, wow, that's fucking phenomenal. I get to, I'm getting out of another 4 years of probation. I'm getting out of having to do at least another 2 years in jail. And all I have to do is 155 days, go to the state system, which is back to state prison, for 155 days only. And then
Only, that would sound like a lifetime for some people.
For some, but if you considering the alternative, 2 years in a county jail system, with 4 years of probation on top of that, once I got out, that's a 6-year commitment. Going through the state system, I had to do 155 days incarcerated, and with the opportunity of being released from parole after 13 months. So we'll call it 5 months, 5 months of incarceration, and 13 months of parole, 18 months, an 18-month commitment versus 48 plus another 24. What is that, 72? Versus a 72-month commitment. To me, it was a no-brainer. Where do I sign? So I went to Chino. Never left the reception center there. I did after waiting to get on a bus for these 155 days, I only had to do 115 or so in Chino. So the time was just getting shorter and shorter and shorter after each stay.
And that's for good behavior, or how exactly does that work?
No, it really is just counting those days off on the calendar. I had flat out, once I left the courtroom, 155 days. I had to wait, 140 or so in the East Mesa detention facility in San Diego County. So that only left me with 115 left once I hit Chino.
Okay.
So, just doing the math day by day, it just keeps chipping away. So I got out May 5th, 2018. And again, found myself in downtown San Diego, wondering what the hell am I going to do? I have to report. This is, I believe it was a Friday or a Saturday, or it was a Saturday. I have to report on Monday. So I have 2 days to try to figure out what I'm going to do. Again, no identification other than you were released from prison. Here's your little paper packet. I had 2 sets of that. They gave me a copy about 5 days before I left, and they gave me another copy the day I was released. I had a JPay prepaid credit card that they gave me all the money, my release money from prison on, and really nothing else. I used some of that gate money that us convicts call gate money when you get out of prison, and bought a phone so that I can communicate with my family and friends, and made some phone calls, did some texting, did some internet searching, and I found the VVSD vet tent. And I figured, okay, I don't know where it's at. I don't know San Diego very well, so I'll just go ahead and stay somewhere around Balboa Park. And in the morning when the transit system wakes up and starts running again, I'll make my way to the VVSD vet tent. And so I laid down. I was over downtown, the high school downtown at the ballpark. I laid down in a dugout. I found an outlet for their scoreboard that worked. Plugged my phone into charge. Walked about 20 feet over to the dugout, and I laid my head down on the bench, and I'm sitting there thinking to myself, or laying there thinking to myself, You got to be the laziest, dumbest motherfucker that ever served in a light infantry division. Don't you got 2 fucking feet you can walk with? You know, and then immediately it's like, fuck, that's the answer. Let's just get on my feet and fucking walk. You know, if I want this, I can't just lay around and wait for shit to happen for me. I have to start getting up and doing for me because nobody else is. So I got up, I unplugged my phone, made my way back up to, I don't know the name of the street there, that Balboa, all the science center, the science air museum.
I know what you're talking about. I don't know the streets very well, but yeah.
So yeah, I hopped up on that street. Google Maps got me over to PCH, going down like West A Street or something. You know, I mean, I made my way over to PCH and I walked PCH all the way out to Old Town, Point Loma area. And I was, the entire time I'm walking, well, not the entire time, but about 2 or 3 times, you know, during this walk, I called the vet tent to make sure they still had a bed available for me, so that when I get there, I can do this, whatever their intake process was, and I can go lay my head down. Well, I get there. I'm right at that gate, and security says, "Well, I don't care what they say inside. I'm not supposed to let anybody in until 7 o'clock." So I called in again and told him what was going on, and the guy said, "Hey, I can't countermand security. Just be patient. When they open up that gate, you just walk in." So I see him open the gate up for guys. You know, guys are walking out. I walk over there, and he says, "I told you 7." I'm like, "Oh, come on. I've been out here all night, buddy. Can you just let me walk in? They tell me they'll intake me right now." And he says, "Hold on." So he walks in, and he goes, "All right, yeah, you come in." So immediately as I'm walking in, there's another guy behind me, you know, and he's, you know, we have to do a little security check. They check all your pockets, make sure you don't have any weapons or
So this
drugs
was
on.
like what, 6:30 a.m. or something like
Yeah,
that?
just about 6:48 a.m. And another guy behind me, you know, he's wanting to check in as well. And I'm thinking to myself, man, I thank God I got here before him. If they only have 1 bed available in this place, I get it, not this guy, you know, which is a terrible way to think. But as tired as I was, you know, the only thing I was thinking about was getting through this intake process and falling asleep. And so it took me a while. I had no ID. So there's a guy was doing my intake. He didn't want to let me in. He's like, "I don't know if this is you. We can't prove that this prison paperwork is you. We don't know if this is, you know, we don't know who you are." I'm like, "Look, buddy, how many guys are going to walk into a place like this and say, with their prison release paperwork here, and say, 'Hey, this is me. I just got out of prison. I'm on parole. Look at the clothes I'm in. I'm in my chinos. I got a white t-shirt on. It says PIA, Prison Industry Authority, on the back. My boxers say PIA. My socks are PIA. My shoes say PIA. Even the label inside my pants are PIA, Prison Industry Authority."
Wait, so what about I mean, everybody, at least from my understanding, thinks that when you go into prison, they take your stuff, and then when you get out, you get your box of whatever you came with. So you should have normal clothes to put on that you had before you came, right?
That's what the movies show you.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
That's every movie I've seen. That's what they
Yeah.
show.
Yeah. I remember the movie 48 Hours, Eddie Murphy putting a suit on when he got out, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, that's all bullshit. If your family or your family or people don't send your stuff into you, you walk out with whatever the prison gives you. They can dress you up as a fucking clown if they want. You know, and I've
So you didn't have any other clothes at that point.
no, I because I was stuck in the reception center and I wasn't going to go to a mainline institution. They wouldn't let my family send in dress outs. They wouldn't let my family send back any of the stuff I had mailed out when I went in there. Now, come to find out, I call my mom when I get out. They never sent my ID card. They never sent my credit cards or my wallet back to my mom because I gave them her address to send all this stuff to. They never sent any of it. It all got lost in the mail.
Somehow,
That's what
right?
they say. Yeah. You don't count on them to do anything they say that they're going to do. You know, I mean, ultimately, the correctional officers, if it wasn't for inmates, correctional officers wouldn't have a job. You know, and you would think that they might treat them a little bit better or be a little bit more conscious of how they act or what they do, you know, and how they fulfill their responsibilities. You know, I mean, to a fellow man, you know, they don't give a fuck. We're cattle. You know, we're dogs in a kennel to them. You know, we let them out. We let the cattle out at feeding time. Let them run through the gates. Moo, moo. You know, that's all we are. Just move along, move through the line. Hurry up, get your tray, go sit down. Get your tray, go sit down. That's it.
Yeah, in their mind, it's numbers.
Yeah.
They're just dealing with the numbers, getting
Yep.
through their day. So you're wearing these clothes, you're checking in, and he's not allowing you to come in because of whatever reason. He's saying it's not actually you. So what ends up happening?
So what ends up happening is he gets up to go see if he can use this paperwork to finish my intake process. And another guy looks over at me and he goes, and I said, he wants to check this paperwork out. He doesn't believe that my prison release paperwork is me. And this guy, a big Asian, mixed race, black and Asian looking guy, definitely works out, lifts weights, whatever, and taller, about 6'3", 6'4". He looks at me, goes, "Man, you're the guy that's been calling all night?" I said, "Yeah, that's me." He goes, "Man, fuck this shit. Let me take care of your intake for you." He looks at my paperwork and I said, "And you can keep that copy as long as that guy gives me the other one back that he walked out with." And he goes, "Yeah, I guess maybe we'll do that just to make sure we have it on file." And I said, I just want to check in, man. I just want to lay my head down and sleep for a little bit." And he goes, "Well, you look like you're dressed like you just got out of prison." I said, "I did. That's what I've been saying on the phone, and that's what this paperwork is." And he goes, "I'll take care of you, brother. Don't worry about it." Come to find out, Army veteran right there, just taking care of another veteran. And he got me in. He got me processed through their little intake system real quick. Took me like 10 minutes. At that 11-minute mark, and I was watching my phone. I had a pillow, blanket, sheets. I had a little hygiene kit in my hand, and almost like I was back in prison again, but I had all that in my hand, and I was able to make it over to my rack. And not only did I get to my rack and lay my stuff down, but that guy was right behind me to help me make my rack.
What would be the normal time length for somebody checking in?
At the VVSD vet tent, it's right about 7 o'clock.
No, I mean, like, how long does it normally take? Because
it could take. It all depends on what you're checking in with. If you have a lot of medication, they want to check your medication. If you have a lot of property to be searched by security, it could take 5-10 minutes to get through all your property.
So I'm trying to compare what would the normal length be in comparison to your 10 minutes.
I'll have to say, I've seen guys there probably right around 25 minutes or so.
Okay, so that's pretty fast then.
Yeah. So after about 5 minutes of dealing with this one guy, and then this next guy sitting down, 11 minutes passes by, boom, I'm in. So 16, 17 minutes it took for me to process through total. And like I said, I get to my rack, and there's that guy, that was like, "You're the one who's been calling all night," the tall guy. And I said, "Yeah, I get to the rack, and he's right there. He's on the other side of my rack, helping me make my bed. That's one veteran helping another veteran right there again. And I laid down. I woke up. Somebody woke me up and said, "Hey, buddy, it's chow time. You can eat." No, I'm gonna sleep. I slept through dinner that night. Woke up at 6 o'clock that next morning, Monday morning, which would be the 7th of May. I had my first meal there. And it was the first real meal I've had in 6 months. Now it might not sound severe or extreme. We hear about guys being in prison for 18, 19 years, 12 years, 10 years, 3 years. So my little 115 days, in prison, and 155 days total of incarceration might not sound much. It might not sound like a whole lot to some people, but I tell you what, man, any day in jail is a long day in jail. And it doesn't matter where you're at. You can be in the most posh, plush, fucking country club institution there is, or you can be in the worst freaking prison or jail that ever existed, but it's still a long day, and it's one day too long. So that first meal I got to eat at the VVSD vet tent was kind of memorable. So here I am. I've got nothing. So and I've got the only thing I have at this point is a jumping off point, or jumping off point.
Did you have a plan at all?
Yeah.
Like, what were you thinking about?
Get my ID, find a way so I can eat something else besides the food that they're serving here. So get an EBT card, get my social security card. Once I get those two things, then I can get a job. The EBT card was just a little extra bonus in my mind. So I get a driver's license, or I get my free driver's license or ID card, because they give you a waiver form to waive all the fees. I get down to DMV and spend my last $5 on the trolley system so I can get there. Um, I get the Compass card that they have here in San Diego County, and I get on down there, and I get my driver's license mailed to the Neil Good Day Center, which is where they have a mailing service there for the homeless. I get my Social Security card the next day. That's mailed to the same place. And I'm thinking to myself, well, that's what I need to fill out my I-9 form to get a job, but I can start the process today. So that third day that I'm out, this is Wednesday the 9th of May, I'm down over at a temp service that hires for the shipyards. And I'm doing all the paperwork. I do I start the paperwork off with them. They tell me you can do all this online. I check out, I use this phone I paid $9 in tax for from Metro PCS. And basically got it for free, paying for the first month's plan and the taxes for the phone. And they say you can do all of this stuff online, and this year you have to be in the office for. And I'm like, okay, well, I don't need to waste my time here at the office. I can go do all this online, and then I'll just email and call and make sure everything is verify that everything got done. And these people, they were great at just sending me an email saying, we got it, it's all done, this next step is done. So by the end of that next week, or by the end of that very first week of being out, I was set up for my OSHA 10 class. I was set up for I had a job. I was 1 week away from really about 2 weeks away from being on the fire watch list out at NASCO. But here comes the holdup now. I have to wait for my ID. I have to wait for my Social Security card before I go and take my OSHA 10 course, or the OSHA 10 safety class. So that was the holdup. So I had to wait an extra week, and then DMV didn't get it to me in the 9 days they say it comes. I ended up getting it 21 days later. I got my ID card. So a little bit of a delay, but I had everything set up to that point, So the moment I touched down in San Diego, and I had my first full day outside, I was off and running. Nothing was going to hold me back. That stick-to-itiveness, that go-get-it attitude, that's something I've been blessed with. It's not something that was nurtured, not anything that was, it's something I've had my whole life. Now, it's something I've repressed sometimes. There's times when I just wanted to sit back and say, fuck you and fuck the world. I'm going to sit back, I'm going to drink this beer and watch a fucking football game. And maybe it turned into, I'm going to drink this beer and fucking watch TV all week long and call in sick for work, and maybe that's bouts of depression that I've had. I've never been diagnosed with it, but there's been times in my life where, I've had that fuck you attitude.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like your character.
It's far from my character, I'm noticing.
Because you're probably the hardest working person on this ranch.
I make sure I am. I don't let anybody outwork me.
Hardest worker in the room, right?
Hey, if you're not, then you're wrong. I'm looking at the hardest worker here right now.
I don't know about that.
I know about that. This guy here, Nate Schoemer, brings in so much money to Cammies and Canines. It's amazing what this guy does. And then this podcast, On Season Dog Food. Have you mentioned that yet? Am I the first one?
At the very beginning of the podcast.
All right. So I'm number 2. All right. Go On Season. Your dog's never off.
All right. So I want to hear the rest of your story, though.
All right. So the rest of my story, 5 weeks I was in the VVSD vet tent. Right around the 3rd week I was there, I met a fellow veteran. Her name is Kathy. We became good friends. She started, kind of showing me a little bit about San Diego, hanging out with me, and I was hanging out with her, and we go places together, and developed a very good relationship, very good friendship there. So through Kathy, I met a gentleman by the name of Tule, and Tule had he showed up at the vet tent, and he had a plan. He was going to go somewhere. And he kept talking about this place he's going to go to, and he was showing people YouTube videos, and he was trying to get me to watch this YouTube video for 5 days, 6 days or so. And this everybody knows where this story is going, because this is the one that's that I've repeated multiple times. It's all over social media. I'm not going to make you go search for it. I'll give you the gist of it here. I wake up one night, it's 1:30 in the morning, and this is the night of, or this is the early morning hours of June 9th. I take that back, June 8th. And I have to go to the bathroom. Vet tent, one way in, one way out. I walk out, as I'm walking out, this guy Tule says, "Hey, I got that video for you to watch." Yeah. I walk out, I go to the bathroom. I'm on my way back in, and I'm like, oh man, this guy's gonna fucking harass me again about this damn video.
Yeah. Was he asking everybody to watch the video, or just certain people?
Certain people. I think the people he was asking were people that he actually liked, and people he thought might contribute and actually receive something from, what he wanted me to watch, which was the Cammies and Canines Saving 2 Lives at Once video on YouTube. I watched that video, and I had tears in my eyes when I went to bed. It wasn't a long walk back to my rack, but it seemed like it took forever. I climbed up in my rack and I started to pray. We talk about programs all day long there. There's this, there's that, there's this new service, there's this company or this organization is helping us out this week. And by the time you get there, it's either all dried up, nothing's going on, or it was somebody's bullshit lie. And I just prayed that this Cammies and Canines wasn't any one of those. That next day, right around 1:30 or so, Kathy and I are walking back from Del Taco. We went out to lunch. We're walking back over to the vet tent, and we get inside, and somebody runs up to me and says, "Hey, have you seen Tule? I can't find him." I said, "He might be on his rack." I said, I'll go find him. And he goes, "Well, hurry up, go find him. His ride is here." And he was coming out to the sanctuary that day. And so I run in, I go over to where his rack is, and I don't see him in it, and for some reason, I wasn't actually looking in the right rack. He was there the whole time in his bed, but I was looking at the bed next to him, and I never saw him in it. So I run back out, I can't find him. But the one thing I do see is in between the trailers over at the VVSD vet tent, or from the laundry trailer to the first porta potty, I see Kalani Kritzberg sitting outside that gate. And I look over to my friend Kathy, and I said, "Kathy, come on, that guy from the video, he's outside right now." We go, there's supposed to be when you step outside of the vet tent, you're supposed to turn in your name back, your ID tag, and then walk out. I literally pulled my ID tag off and just kind of tossed it like 5-6 feet. It landed right on the table, slid about 2-3 inches. The security guard grabbed it, looked at it, and goes, "Don't throw it at me next time," and then he puts it away. And I run out and I introduce myself to Kalani. Kathy introduced herself. I ask him if he's got any space, any room. "Can you tell me more about Cammies and Canines?" He tells me a little bit. And then I ask him what branch of the service, and he tells me he was in the Marine Corps. And he goes, "Let me guess, with the long hair, you're in the Navy." "No, the Army." And I said, "This is where real men serve." And and automatically he goes, he makes some other joke about my long hair or something, and boom, I knew right then and there that this guy is legit. This guy, he can't be bullshitting. He just looks too sincere. And tells me I can't go out that day, but he'll be back in 2 days, on Sunday on June 10th, and he and that he'll talk to us then. And so the June 9th, I'm telling people, I'm telling people that Kalani's coming out on June 10th, and I'm trying to talk to people that I like, and people that I think, knowing that this ranch is legit now, and having seen the video, knowing that this is going to be a working ranch, and having worked on a ranch, at one point in my life, I'm looking for people who I think are going to be workers, automatically right out of the gate. I don't even know if I'm coming out here, but I'm looking for people that I could live with and that I could work with, in the vet tent. And I gathered a group of about 6 or 7 of us to meet Kalani outside that day, or that day, on the 10th. And everybody I asked to show up showed up. Some of them not immediately. They just floated in, but we all showed up. And Kalani is he's telling us a little bit about what the ranch is like, but he's got some bad news. He says, I only have room for one person right now. And he listens to everybody's story, just a little snippet of each story. And he comes back after talking to his group that he had with him, which were 3 of the residents at the time. We all remember Noel, Robert, and Tule. Tule had only been out there for 2 days, but he was part of the discussion, which I thought was really cool. Kalani is taking listening to the input from a guy who's only been there for 2 days, which immediately resonated with me. This is a guy who listens to his people. Doesn't matter how long you've been out there, everybody's input is valuable, which I thought was just one of the coolest things in the world. I mean, he's really going to listen to somebody who's only been there for 2 fucking days. And then he comes back and he says, okay, well, I've made my decision. I want you to know none of this is personal, but I've listened to all your stories, and the one that really hits me the most is you. And he's pointing at my friend Kathy. And I was super happy. I was so happy. She is finally going to get off the streets, and not the streets, but she's not going to be homeless anymore. She's got somewhere where she can go. I know that it's going to be safe for her. So I was thrilled. I was very happy for her. I was also bummed it wasn't me. Nobody wants to be picked second, right? You always want to get picked first, but I was happy that she was the one that was picked, and then so I asked Kalani, I said, well, when are you going to have more bed space available? And he says, I don't know. And I said, well, I mean, I come from a light motherfucking infantry division. I can walk anywhere. If I get to your gate, will you let me in? And he kind of looked at me and said, you'll walk? I said, I'll walk anywhere, and I will walk to your ranch. And he just kind of like, I saw a little bit of like the surprised look in his eyes. And everybody else, were like, had mentioned it to me afterwards. Did you see how he looked when you said you would walk there? He says, do you even know where it's at? And I said, I'm not from San Diego, but I got Google Maps. I'll get there. I can read a map, sir. And I think that hit him. But nonetheless, there was only one seat available in his car. So Kathy was it. So I take off with Kathy. My mom, she raised me right. When there's a man around, a woman doesn't have to lift anything, So I'm thinking to myself, well, I'm going to go help her pack, and I'll carry her stuff out to the car. And that's what I did. So I run in, we're packing her stuff up. I'm pulling everything out and carrying everything. And she's like, wait, let me carry it. No. You don't need to carry anything. Besides, you're leaving here. Go check out with the staff here at the tent, and I'll get your stuff packed in the car for you. I run out there. I'm packing everything in the car. And as soon as I put it in the last of her bags, Kalani says, hey, Bryan, come here. I said, yes, sir. And he goes, you're coming out tonight. I said, what? He says, you and Jimmy, you guys are coming out tonight. I'm going to come back and pick you up. And Tule kind of looks at the major and says, sir, I'm going to stay here with Bryan. You take Jimmy now. He needs to go before I do. Bryan and I will hang out here until you come back. And Kalani said, sure. So we go, and I run back in. We find Jimmy. I help him pack his stuff and get his stuff out to the car, get Jimmy in the vehicle. And, Jimmy's here. Jimmy and Kathy and Kalani and Robert and Noel, they're gone. They left. And it's just Tule and me. And Tule goes, you need help packing? I'm like, man, I was packed Friday night. And he goes, so you're going to check out? And I said, yeah, I'm going to go check out right now. I walked in, grabbed 2 bags, 3 bags, and went up to the front desk, turned in my ID card and or my ID badge, and said, hey, I'm checking out. Do I need to sign anything so I'm in good standing with you all? And they said, we'll take care of it. And you going to the same place that Kathy went to? And I said, yes, I am. They said, okay, we'll fill it. We'll take care of the paperwork. Do I need to sign anything? No, you're good. All right, see you. Good luck, Firth. See you later. So boom, I'm outside waiting with Tule. And we waited for about 2.5 hours. I wasn't worried. Kalani said he was coming back. I believed him to be a man of his word, and that's what he is. He's a man of his word. He showed up, picked us up, and started driving on out to the sanctuary. And lo and behold, I didn't realize that when he said we're out there, we were really out there. It was still summertime, so the days are longer, so the sun wasn't setting at all, and I got a good view of everything out here. As we're driving in, you could see the mountainsides. You see all the vehicles as you drive in, and I noticed a vehicle much like one I had when I was a kid, or really when I was in the Army. It was a vehicle I had at the house. It was a Chevy Love pickup, and I looked at it. I said, "That's a Chevy Love, 1976." I said, "I can fix that." And he said, "What? You can fix that?" "Yeah. I used to be an ASE certified mechanic." And he goes, "What school did you go to?" I said, "I never went to school. My buddy was taking the ASE certification test. I figured, fuck it, I'll take it too." And I passed it without ever going to a school. And he said, "What?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "What else have you done?" I said, "Oh, I used to drive trucks in Kuwait." And he goes, "What? Doing what?" I said, "Running fuel, gas over to forward operating bases and doing the stickers and Gatorade runs." He goes, "Really?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "What else?" I said, "I'm an electric vehicle technician." I gave him my whole resume. I've done a lot of things in my life. Only because I've never been satisfied with one thing. And all of that is something I found out that other than my children and my grandkids and my family, I've never had any purpose. There was no personal mission. When I got out of the service, out of the Army, and graduated college, that was really it. In my head, in my mind, that was all. That was the only missions I had. And from 1997 until 2018, August of 2018, I had no purpose. There was no goals. There was, I mean, I wasn't unsuccessful. I took care of my family. I raised my kid, my son, a great kid. I have my grandchildren and my daughter. She was virtually, she was pretty much already grown. She was born 2 weeks before I signed my enlistment paperwork. So that's, January of 1989. So, she's already grown. She's almost 30 years old. She's just a great woman, a great mother. Other than just, I want to call them the small things in life. They're very important things. There was no purpose. I got out to this ranch, started working, and I realized where I want to be in 6 months. And there's nothing more important in my life than me, obviously, but what's making me happy? What is it that I want to do? And I see the mission of Cammies and Canines, and I have a personal mission that's a little bit different, but it's the same thing that Cammies and Canines is doing. So I'm fulfilled every day. I wake up every day. I get to live my mission. I get to live a purpose-driven life. I get to help out my fellow brothers and sisters every single day. I have a loving dog. She's not a trained dog by any means.
You have the resources to train her.
You know what? I want her to be a dog. And I see your dog, and your dog is just as happy as any dog on the planet. But, I kind of like seeing her a little wild.
Being a bit of a knucklehead.
If she wants to be a knucklehead, I'm going to let her be a knucklehead.
So what are your day-to-day operations here?
My day-to-day operations, well, right now I'm still a veteran resident here at the Cammies Canine Sanctuary. But I live my day as if I run this motherfucker. That's how I live my day. You know, I make decisions out here that I probably have no right making, but I make them anyways, and it turns out most of them are the right one. Um,
Well,
uh,
I mean, we try to do those meetings. So we started
yeah,
doing meetings every night, and often I'm not able to make it, or Kalani's not able to make it, and you run with it,
I run with it.
and you know exactly what needs to take place and what needs to get done here on the sanctuary in order for it to continue running the way that it's supposed to. And you know, usually at around noon, 1 o'clock is when you guys finish for the
Right.
day, and then after that is more about that self
Personal development.
personal development, right? So, how do you decide with the veterans that are coming in, because you are a leader here, and you're going to be at that position where you're going to be staff, right, here real soon.
Correct. 1 week.
So, how do you decide based on each person's individual struggles and their own mission and what they're doing to delegate accordingly to each person what they need to do in order to help them grow?
Well, first off, here at Cammies Canines, we empower our veterans through responsibility. And the more that they show that they can't take responsibility, the more responsibility we put on their plate. And every one of us every day finishes our tasks. Nobody fails out here. Every task gets done. That's a successful task finished, which means there is no failure. But how do I decide that? Everybody has a different energy level. Everybody has a different take on, you know, what initiative is. Everybody has a different take. Everybody out here is their own individual. Um, my job, as I see it, is to find out where the strengths are with each veteran that we have, and I'm not going to say nurture it, but feed it. You know, if somebody loves to pound nails, you know, and build, there's a job for them here. Somebody, you know, somebody likes to turn a wrench. There's a job for them here. You know, and I can't tell you how I do that. I guess it's just one of those God-given talents that I have to be able to find the right fit for each person. Um, I can do it all. So, you know, I don't have to worry about, can I do this job or can I not do this job? I can do anything.
Well, you do it well, and that is one of the things I think that in the early stages you were trying to do everything. And I think
Hmm.
at one point it came down to where Kalani said, "Hey, I don't want you doing everything."
I've been told that, and I keep getting told that, you know, but I have a problem with being able to trust other people to do a task on here that on this ranch that I feel is important.
I've
Uh,
seen a lot of the veterans here develop quite a bit working directly underneath you.
yeah.
So whatever it is you are doing is obviously helping, and it's paying off, and it's making a big difference. But we are almost at the end of our time, so we do have to wrap this up. Is there anything else? And of course, we could do another episode
Oh
later.
no, I'm going to save the rest for another episode. You have to invite me back here. This is great.
Okay, perfectly. Most definitely, perfectly. Okay, so hey, I want to, thank everybody for taking the time to listen to this episode, the very first Cammies and Canines podcast episode. There will be a lot more. Thank you so much, Bryan Firth, for coming down, even though his first name is Richard.
Yes, yes.
Richard Bryan Firth. But
Don't look for me on social media.
yes, look for him. You need to set up an Instagram so people can find you on there as well.
I have one.
Oh, okay. Well, there you
Actually,
go.
Big Bri.
So, how can people find you?
You can find me on Facebook, Richard Firth. You can find me. You want my phone number? I'll give it to the world because.
just do social media.
Okay. You can find me through Facebook at Richard Firth. If you want to email me, I'll give you that. That's rickbf707@gmail.com.
All right. Thanks again, everybody, and we will see you on the next episode.
All right. Bye, world. Thank you, tribe. I love you, Mom.